Hi everyone, I hope you're having a great day today. My name is Frank and let's talk about how I'm planning for retirement as a 25-year-old. Even though it seems like retirement is forever away, I figured the earlier I get started planning for it, the less I would have to worry about it later on in life. So first, I wanted to share my thoughts on what retirement is and what it isn't, at least from my perspective. Then I'll go over how I keep myself from touching my savings account and just prevent overspending in general. And finally, I'm going to talk about how I'm using retirement accounts to prevent paying taxes on my investments, which, by the way, just to be clear, it's all legal and any one of you can do it as well. Before all that, do make sure to drop a like on this video. It really helps out the YouTube algorithm, push this video out for more people to see, and I really super duper appreciate it, guys. I really do. Now with that said, let's get started. I've always had this problem with the general idea of retirement because, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, the general viewpoint tends to gravitate around this idea that you would work for a bunch of years, accumulate enough money, and then finally, when you're 60 years old, you can just retire, leave your job, and do whatever you want to do for the rest of your life. My primary conflict with this idea is that I really enjoy working, at least on something. And while I also do enjoy going on vacation and doing nothing for a certain amount of time, just like anyone else, there comes a point for me where doing nothing is actually very boring and it starts to really stress me out. So that makes for this really weird curve of relaxation on vacation where I feel very relaxed, and all of a sudden, as time goes on, that relaxation turns into stress just because I don't feel fulfilled or like I'm doing something anymore. So that's problem one for me, which may or may not resonate with you, just depending on how you are. But problem two is something I think is widely applicable to everyone. And that's something I found in the book, The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss. And this book has significantly changed some of my viewpoints on life after reading it, so I'll probably make a more detailed video about it soon. But the general gist was this part of the book that touched on the idea of people waiting until retirement so that they could finally do X. And that X can be anything from going to Thailand to sailing the Caribbean on a sailboat to just sitting at home and watching movies all day long. The argument in the book was that first, when you reach 60 years of age, your body is no longer as it used to be. So there's certain things that you won't be able to do, even if you wanted to do them, just because you've let your prime years slip by. And secondly, how do you know you'll actually like sailing the Caribbean on a sailboat, for example? There are gonna be a lot of storms there. You might get seasick very easily and spend the entire journey seasick, or you might just get bored after the first 2 days. So imagine you spent your entire life waiting to do this one thing, working every single day hard, saving up for retirement, finally doing this one thing like 30, 40 years down the line, and you actually hate that one thing and you don't feel fulfilled by it and you don't have that many years left. So what did you actually do with your entire life? These ideas are why I've come to see retirement not as the goal, but as Timothy Ferriss says, the worst case scenario. All of the money going towards retirement is just in case everything else goes wrong with my life. So it's not plan A, it's plan B to keep me out of homelessness when I'm 60 years old. Now saying that, talking about saving for retirement is meaningless if you're not actually saving in the first place. And what I do to prevent myself from wasting unnecessary money is keep a zero-based budgeting system, which in the simplest terms just means that every single dollar that comes into my bank account is assigned a specific purpose. I heard Kevin O'Leary from Shark Tank actually say this one time and it just stuck with me forever because I think it's a brilliant analogy. But he thinks of every single dollar as a little soldier that he sends off to do something. And I love that because then you can think of yourself as sort of like a general telling your little soldiers or dollars where to go and what to do. So there should be no confusion on what needs to be done with every particular dollar. So for my budgeting, I use a tool called YNAB, which is founded on this idea of assigning a job for every single dollar that comes into your bank account. And it is like $7 a month, but it's like a perfect command center if used properly, and for me, I think it's completely worth it. Through this budgeting system, I know exactly where every single dollar in my bank account is going to. So I send a few of my little soldiers to pay for my Verve membership. Then I'll send a few more to pay for my eating out money, and finally, I'll send a few little soldiers to secure my retirement for me. But I don't stop there, I go a step further than that just to prevent myself from misbehaving. Even with this very strict form of budgeting, we're still human and it can be a little tempting to just move some money around every now and then, especially if you're putting your retirement money into a savings account that uses the same bank as your debit card. Why is that? Well, because this makes a scenario where you're just casually checking your debit card account every now and then, and you'll see your savings account pop up right next to your debit card account on the same page on your phone, and you're thinking to yourself, wow, I actually have a lot of money in my savings account. And I don't like that. That thought comes subconsciously to me, and I just prefer not to have that scenario happen. So what I did was that I opened up a savings account in a completely different bank than my checking account. So after I move money from my checking account to my savings account, I literally don't even see that money unless I would check on YNAB on my budgeting software. The idea with this is to have an out of sight, out of mind scenario where you're not constantly reminded of how much money you have in your savings account. So this actually makes you feel like you have a lot less money than you actually do. And I like that because it makes me think more frugally, and it tends to make me more conservative on where I spend my money. Finally, what I'm doing with my savings account is using it as a reservoir of cash. So every month I put a little bit of money into my savings account, and the money stays there until an investment opportunity comes up. Specifically for retirement investing, what you want to use is either a 401k, a traditional IRA, or a Roth IRA, which is the one that I'm using. So in my case, my savings account is my reservoir of cash. And whenever I have an opportunity to invest into a Roth IRA, which is every year after I pay taxes, I take money from that savings account and I dump it into my Roth IRA. By the way, I did recently just make a video on traditional IRAs, Roth IRAs, and 401ks. So if you're curious on what retirement account is best for you, definitely check that video out. But yeah, what I'm using is a Roth IRA, and this is available for anyone under a certain income limit, which is something like $124,000 a year. So this is generally available to most people, as that's way above the average median income of the United States. And if you wanted to set things up exactly like how I have set them up, you could probably do this within a day if you really wanted to. So let me break it down for you. But first, let me just say, I'm not saying you should do exactly what I'm doing. I'm just showing you what I'm doing and how I'm managing my money. I'm not saying this is the only way to do things. And with that disclaimer out of the way, we can continue. For 2020, since I made below the income limit for a Roth IRA, which then was $124,000 within that year, I was able to then contribute up to $6,000 of my own money from my savings account to my Roth IRA account after paying income taxes for 2020. And anyone can really open up their own Roth IRA in maybe like 10 minutes with any broker out there, as long as you have taxable income. And if you're curious, the one that I use for my Roth IRA is currently Vanguard. After putting my money into my Roth IRA, that money can then be invested into something. And personally, I'm investing into the mutual fund VFIAX, which tracks the S&P 500 and generates 8% per year over the long term, which really shouldn't be a problem because this is a retirement account and I'm not going to be using this money until I'm 60 years old. So definitely long term, and I should not have any problem with that. Since the contribution limit for a Roth IRA in 2020 was $6,000, I divided that $6,000 by the 12 months in a year and made it so a little bit of money would be invested each and every month into VFIAX. What this does is it prevents the potential possibility of me investing all $6,000 all at once and then the market crashing like a month later and me losing a bunch of money on that. Like exactly what happened in March of 2020. So by investing a little bit every single month, we're avoiding that scenario. So basically what's happening is that right now I'm saving $500 each and every month for next year's Roth IRA contribution. All the while, the money in my Roth is being invested each and every month into VFIAX. So I'm investing and saving at the same time for retirement. This makes for a very interesting scenario where if I just keep doing what I'm doing each and every month and spend just a little few minutes every month making sure things are running smoothly, I should retire with more than $1 million in my Roth IRA account. And the best part about that is that that money is completely 100% tax-free, which by the way is the entire point of using a Roth IRA to invest your money. And for the record, if you're watching this and you can't really contribute or save $500 each and every month, just know that if I couldn't be able to do that, then I would still be saving maybe like $50 a month or something, because every little bit counts. And with $50 a month, right now, I would have $120,000 at the age of 60, which is not $1 million, but it's something. And it's tax-free, which is the most important part. I know this can be just a little bit complicated, so if you're confused by anything or have any questions at all, please just leave a comment below and I will do my very best to answer your question. Anyways, I hope this video has given you guys some ideas on how to approach retirement, which is something eventually all of us will have to face. And before I forget, make sure to click that like button if you haven't already, and make sure to subscribe if you like this content. I really appreciate you guys watching, and I hope you have a wonderful and productive day today. I will catch you guys later.